I hereby introduce to you Mr. Michael Veazey.
Today's show is brought to you by Amazing FBA's mentoring program. So I'm kind of sponsoring my own show. I just wanted to briefly tell you about the mentoring program because it's about to go away at its current price point and in its current form. The mentoring program is there very simply to get you launched, like pretty much everything I do for the more, early days sellers, apart from the 10K Collective, which is obviously for people doing very, very well and ambitious to scale. Everything else I do is really geared to helping you get launched with your first private label product within probably 6 months, maybe 9 months if you're really busy and have other projects on the go. So if you want to work with me for £300 a month for 2 90-minute sessions plus email support, that is the current offer. I'm going to take one more person on, maximum 2 if the other candidate is really, really special and looks like a really great person who's going to succeed. Either that or by the end of June, one of those, whichever comes first. Then after that, I'm going to yank the mentoring program at that price point. And when it goes back up, it's going to be part of a bigger, more powerful package, including an online course, which I'm very excited about. And it's going to be at least £500 a month, probably more, because I'm putting a higher value on my time because I realize opportunity cost is a real cost. And hopefully you realize that as well. So if you value your time, there are 3 things you need to have to even apply for mentoring. You need at least £5,000 in inventory money. That's not to cover your training costs with me. That's additional, but just for inventory, 20 hours a week to devote to building a business, and 6 months of your time to devote to it as well. Otherwise, I think you're just wasting your time, and I won't take you on because I don't want to take your money for the sake of it. I want to take your money only in exchange for great value and you creating your business finally getting off the ground. So amazingfba.com/mentoring if that interests you. Otherwise, on with the show. Thanks for listening. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Amazing FBA, the place to be for British Amazon sellers and indeed those far beyond as well, a lot of American listeners these days. I'm very, very pleased to welcome to the show Paul Miller of Next Level Licensing and also of Cozy Phones, which is his Amazon brand. So Paul is, as the having of an Amazon brand suggests, a very experienced Amazon seller. In fact, he's made millions by using licensing as part of his business model. So that's very, very interesting. I'm very excited to hear about this. I think it's something everybody needs to hear because we've got to have some edge on the competition. So Paul, very, very warm welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Paul, first of all, the obvious question, which is lazy interviewing in a way, but we've got to know a little bit about you, your background, and how you came to be selling on Amazon.
Sure, be happy to tell you about that. So I started in 2015. I actually started selling on Amazon as a plan B to what at the time was a failing restaurant business. I was a restaurant franchisee. I owned 3 stores, had 70 employees, tons of equipment, lease, overhead, and all that. And it wasn't going very well at that time, so I started looking at Amazon selling as a plan B, and quickly became a plan A. In fact, I was able to exit my restaurant business after about 6 months and go full-time into Amazon.
Wow, that's pretty impressive stuff. So restaurant business. So you went from the most overhead hungry bricks and mortar to completely offline, so online rather. So how come you were able to go so quickly from a restaurant business to on Amazon then and transition out completely?
Well, really, I was kind of forced to do so because, as I said, the restaurant business was headed down. I went from 3 stores to 1 store. And when I discovered Amazon, I was really in the midst of trying to resurrect that 1 store. At that time, I actually had an injury. I broke my collarbone, couldn't work in the restaurant anymore. And I just focused all my time and energy on Amazon and during my recovery. And, I tried a few products, hit on a winner, and just haven't looked back.
That's an amazing story. That reminds me of actually that old Chinese saying, which is, I can't remember the exact saying, but it's something like, don't assume that you think what you think of as adversity could turn out to be the best thing that ever happened to you. So breaking your collarbone may be responsible for you making millions of dollars. By the way, guys, if you're listening and if my lawyers are getting worried, don't try this at home. It's not a method for making money.
Exactly.
But it does go to show, it reminds me, was it Ben Franklin that was stuck in an iron lung years ago and sitting there, formed many of his great philosophies of life when he was stuck in a hospital bed. So maybe there's a commonality with some of the great American heroes there. So obviously, more than breaking a collarbone got you going. What what would you say managed? Okay, I can understand why you went at it full time, and if your business was failing, and if you weren't physically able to work at it, what would you attribute to your ability to make the Amazon business work at that point in the sort of first few months that you were on Amazon?
Well, I'm a student of and one of the first and biggest Amazon seller courses, and that course had quite a nice community with it. So I really learned a lot from those folks in that community, and along the way, I did my part to help them out as much as I could, and a lot of them became mentors of mine. So having the inspiration of other people around me, surrounding myself by great people who really, really understood how to make it on Amazon, that was key for me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Surround yourself by great people. Yeah. And also interesting what you were saying, just dig a little bit more into this. And obviously we're getting into the licensing, but I'm always interested in the clues of how people, who are very successful get to where they've got. Tell me a bit more about helping out mentors or finding mentors or helping other people who are doing well.
Well, so one of the things I was doing at that time and how I met a lot of people was by providing a valuable service to them. Really, it was free of charge at the time. Again, while I was kind of recuperating from the broken collarbone, I started doing unboxing videos. So people needed a review of their product, and I would say, hey, just send me the product. I mean, at that time, I just got into Amazon, and I thought it was great. I was getting free product, and all I had to do was a 5-minute video. So my wife was kind of wondering what was going on. Here I am sitting at home, recuperating, more and more Amazon packages showing up every day. But it was easy enough to do a simple video, a little unboxing video, and then post it for these other sellers. And, when you give something, you freely give something to somebody else, they're more likely to help you when you need help.
So 2 very, very simple things you just mentioned there, but so few people do that, which is number one, find the people that are going to help you and surround yourself with smarter people. And a lot of people don't do that. They surround themselves with people who don't know what's going on. In other words, they're a member of 100 Facebook groups, all of which are of dodgy value. And the second thing is to actually take the initiative to reach out and help people for free and create that goodwill. I mean, it sounds so obvious as soon as you say it, but actually very few people do it. And I don't think I consciously did that for quite a long time. I mean, fortunately, through the podcast enables that's kind of my vehicle for being able to help out powerful people and be of use to them. And in return, learn an incredible amount. I feel very privileged to be in that position. But that's a really fantastic clue. So I think, if you stop listening right now, you would have some very, very powerful thoughts to take from this show, I think. But let's dig a bit further. So obviously you got going with Amazon. It worked well enough to replace your day job, which it sounds like was proving extremely challenging anyway. What would you say were the things, apart from those things, that you did right? And what were your biggest challenges in the first few months to year on Amazon?
Well, I followed a lot of the kind of standard Amazon formulas, including tailoring taking the product and customizing it or modifying and make it unique to my brand. We, built a better listing from the ground up. Again, followed kind of the principles. Look at what's already out there. Build a better listing. A lot of good keyword research, PPC. The whole 9 yards. And then we added. I really made lots of variations as quickly as I could in our product. That was pretty easy to do. Different styles, different colors, different patterns, and using variations, I think, is a really strong technique, because if you have one item, ranked very well with a lot of reviews, a lot of times you can add variations to that same listing and kind of skip the launch process because you're riding on the coattails of your primary ASIN. Now, that has recently changed a little bit, in that used to be that all reviews were rolling up from all different variations. And recently I've seen where each variation is carrying its own reviews. So they're not always rolled up. Some of my ASINs, and that's very recent, within the last few weeks, some of my ASINs still roll up all of the reviews in the parent-child relationship, and others just show the individual reviews for those ASINs.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a very recent trend that I've heard about, but I hadn't actually heard somebody actually mentioning about their specific products till now. So that's very interesting. But I guess also that's under Amazon's control, and there's still a lot in terms of ranking and getting your product visibility that makes sense. That the logic's still there for doing variations, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that makes a lot. So you can still effectively ride the coattails a lot, even if it's not with reviews. It's in terms of ranking and getting it visible without having to rank it separately. So,
Yes.
okay, so you customize things as well. That sounds like a great way to do things. And again, there are still people that try, and I tend in that direction. I get quite lazy with the product development side. I confess, I'm more of a marketing guy than a products guy, and that's okay as long as you recognize that and get somebody involved, I guess. But customization is, I think, it's getting really, really important now, and it's always been important. But tell me a bit more about the challenges side of things. And so obviously you did really well, but you're doing licensing and exploring what the hell that means in a minute. But before we even get into that, what drove you there in the first place? What were the challenges with the existing business model? Why not just do more of the same?
Well, I think my challenges are the same ones that a lot of other people face: product differentiation, copycats. Those are really big challenges for me, and they continue to be somewhat challenging today. But we'll get on, and as we go through the conversation, I'll tell you how I've used licensing to differentiate. But some other challenges had to do with poor product quality along the way. In the beginning, when you're just starting, you might want to skip that inspection stage. But if you do, and your product gets to Amazon and you start getting a lot of returns, that ASIN will get shut off.
Yeah.
I also have had false IP infringement claims, issued against me. I can recall very vividly my first Black Friday when my number one ASIN was shut down on that day, and it wasn't a good day. So I've had to deal with IP issues, deal with quality control issues. I've had speaking of quality control, I had a whole shipment which were mislabeled by the manufacturer with the wrong FN SKU, and those were sent into Amazon.
Yeah.
And
That's a nightmare, right? I've been there.
yeah.
With that.
Oh yeah. Your customer's saying, "Hey, I ordered blue, but I got green."
Yep. I had
And
that exact issue.
it says green on the label, but the barcode reads blue.
Yeah, there's a lack of their common sense and Amazon don't really go together. If you don't send stuff in organized properly outside of Amazon, then yeah, a whole host of unpleasantness awaits you, I have to say. So yeah, I hear you on that one. So I think the moral of the story we could take from those things, just simple bits of information. Number one, triple check the labeling before it goes into the Amazon system, and don't skip inspection ever. As I remember Kevin King on the show once saying, never ever 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 skip inspection coming from China, and I have to say I'm with him on that, including
exactly
labels. He's
including the labels and having them scan the app and then send you a screenshot of that scanned app.
Yeah, absolutely. That I now have recently learned over the last few months. So thank you for reminding us of that. Again, a really useful little nugget. But okay, so the big issues: differentiation, false IP claims, and copycats. Basically dealing with the competition, to put it in a nutshell. Exactly. Is that really what drove you towards the whole licensing model? Is that what the point of the whole thing?
Yeah, let me take a step back and kind of lead you into how I got into licensing.
Yeah.
So, my product is called Cozy Phones, and if you look it up on my website, not my Amazon listing, so you don't hurt my conversion rate. Go to cozyphones.com and you can take a look at our product. This was a sleep headphone, and I was doing a photo shoot one time with some models, and the photographer put them on her daughter, her 10-year-old daughter, and using her iPad, and it just clicked to me that, wow, maybe this could make a fun kids product. So I actually went to my daughter, who's in art school, and said, hey, can you make one of our headband headphones with a character on it for kids characters, so we can try this out in the marketplace. So she made 3 or 4 different characters. I think it was a cat, a frog, and a puppy, and we chose the frog to start with. That was about 2 years. ago, and we launched it that Christmas, and it did really well. So I expanded that line into a bunch of other Cozy Phones originals. We submitted for patent protection, both on utility and design. And then I started calling around to friends of mine and asking them, hey, I've got this hot product going on. How do I grow and protect my brand? Because I was worried again about copycats and knockoffs. One friend of mine, his name is Mark Hirsch, and he was with Q Brands at the time. Mark suggested that I look into licensing. His brother is actually in the toy business, and there's a ton of licensing done in the toy business. I didn't know anything about it at all. He said, yeah, I think there's a show coming up in Vegas. You should go out there and check it out. So I went to the licensing expo in Vegas that year, and just completely without any knowledge of licensing, just showed up and tried to start absorbing the world of licensing and figure out how that could work for my product.
Amazing.
As a result of that show, we did our first license with a children's book author. It was her character is called the What If Monster. So we made a monster headband, headphones, speakers, with speakers in them. And that ended up being a successful relationship. And then we took it up a few notches after that. I hired a licensing consultant to help us take it up a few notches. And we were speaking with Disney, Hasbro, and Nickelodeon. And frankly, all of them liked our product. We have a unique product. They loved our sales. And we ended up doing a deal with Nickelodeon for 4 different properties that they have. And if you have little kids, you might know them. They are Paw Patrol, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and 2 others. So now we're making, our Cozy Phones. And for your video audience, I'm going to hold up a picture of my product there for you. This is our Cozy Phones in a Paw Patrol version. So
wow, interesting.
We've got Nickelodeon on the label, on the packaging. We've got, and you can imagine how that kind of gives you amazing credibility, and people think twice before they go messing with a product that's got Nickelodeon on it.
Absolutely. So just to sort of backtrack, there's so much to absorb here. I mean, so first of all, it sounds like it started off by realizing a different customer avatar. In other words, you had, just by chance, instead of using this and what is this? So the nature of the product is actually like it's basically a headband which incorporates headphones. Okay, fine.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So you had a specific concept for the product, but then you just by seeing it happening, you thought this could be a kid's product. So you rejigs things. So the first time, I'm just trying to sort of reverse engineer the process really. So the market that you had in mind was different. And then you went to a design. So you added some design elements, and then licensing kind of came about as a way to protect your design and protect the idea behind it. Is that about right? Roughly what happened?
Right. And that's right. You made a key point that it really did. We took our existing product that we were selling for adults, and basically I was selling for adult sleep and relaxation and active. So we have an active line of headband headphones for running. And we took that and basically applied this very similar product to a new market, which is the kids. And that's a point that, I like to make sometimes. You can, think about whatever you're doing, your product is, don't get pigeonholed and think that this product is only for a specific market.
So one of the things you've just picked up on is the change of market for the same product, which is something that Rick Cesari, who did a massive job with things like the GoPro camera and the lean green grilling machine, if that's how you say it, the lean mean grilling machine, the George Foreman grill. Anyway, right. He was saying exactly the same kind of thing, which is don't get obsessed with the product so much as who it can be used for and what it can be used for. Now he was talking about the usage of things more than anything else, but you specifically change your target customer, and that seems to have been the beginning of everything else changing.
Yep, that's right. Just keep your mind open to new audiences. In fact, Rick Cesari is one of the people that I called. I had met him through another event, and one of the people that I called about advice and licensing, and he's certainly the king when it comes to licensing.
Wow, interesting. I hadn't made that connection because we had Rick Cesar on the show the other day, and really very interesting. He was focused more on video marketing specifically and brand in general. But so tell us a bit about how you actually got started. So you went straight. I love the fact that you went straight into action. You didn't know what the hell you were doing and just went to a licensing fair anyway. And it sounds like you hit pay dirt straight away. So how did you go about going from knowing nothing to walking away with some kind of licensing agreement with the lady you have, this what if monster, whatever that is?
It's the What If Monster. When I registered for the licensing expo, you can create a company profile there, and what your products are, and they have a matchmaking service. So I met her through the matchmaking service online, and then we were able to meet face to face at the licensing show. And her product was simply perfect for cozy phones. It had the right kind of the shape and the right audience. She has this children's book that teaches basically confidence to children. And she's got a fan base of about 50,000 people who she communicates with regularly. So, one of the things that I teach in licensing is you don't have to start off with the Nickelodeon, the Disney, or the Hasbro. You can start off on a smaller level, entrepreneur to entrepreneur. And if that person that you're dealing with has a following of 50,000 people or so, or even smaller, they can really benefit your sales efforts.
Absolutely.
They'll become, your advocate.
Yeah, I mean, 50,000 people, if it's a really tight message to market match and they've really got the engagement and confidence of the audience, that can be a really very powerful list size. I mean, because if you can have, millions of people who could care less about your products, you're going to have to literally talk to millions of people on TV advertising to reach anybody who cares about your product. But if they're really a targeted list, that's a very powerful thing. And interesting, again, making another connection, we had Brian Burt on a while ago talking about his influencer marketing course, which is really very good, and Overgrowth, which is an excellent way of doing that. But this is almost like the next level up of the same thought, which is you need to find somebody who's got your audience and put your product in front of their audience, really, and make sure they benefit. And this is a much more advanced version of the same idea, in the sense, I guess, that they have your audience and they have a brand that resonates with, the audience that you need, and you have the product. And so it's like a tighter version of the same thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, that's come up a lot of time in, how this advocate who might also be an influencer, it's a kind of a different way to approach that influencer market. Typically, a lot of influencers might be paid on a one-off basis. For example, I do it myself just by sending out products in exchange for reviews, and now and then we do some paid influencer. But a licensing arrangement with an influencer really gives them more of a stake in the outcome, where they're receiving what's basically a commission or a royalty on the sales that they generate. It's just a different way to create that arrangement.
Yeah, well, it's obviously a much more, you're getting into bed, as it were, with one person a lot more. Maybe that's an English phrase we don't say in America. I don't know, but that's very interesting that you can take it to that level. Okay, so because I was just thinking it's very important to think that you could get started that quickly. I mean, Disney and Hasbro and Nickelodeon, obviously incredibly impressive names, but tell us a bit more about how you took things to the next level with a person that was just, with the 50,000 followers. You had this matchmaking thing, which obviously worked beautifully in your case. You met up. What was next after that?
So again, I was, very much, a rookie on licensing. Even with that one agreement, it was a basic one-page boilerplate that we found together. Didn't even, use any attorneys or anything with that deal. But once I could really see the power of licensing and see how I could apply it to some big names, I knew I needed some professional help. So, but I searched, far and wide for either a course or materials and how to teach me, the manufacturer and the brand owner, how to become a licensee with a major name, and how to reach out there to those folks. What kind of a proposal do you need to get to kind of win that license? And I just couldn't find hardly anybody. I did finally, through my network and through using LinkedIn, I was able to find a consultant to work with who had been in the corporate side and been both on the licensee and licensor side before, who could help me speak to the big brands about licensing their properties. And through her, we made contacts into the big brands that I talked about: Disney, Hasbro, and Nickelodeon.
Okay, so I guess this is the point at which we need to clarify what it is. And it sounds like a funny thing to say, like, why are we bothering to clarify it this late in the show about licensing what it is? Maybe we should have done that earlier, but I always want to see somebody's actual story and how they end up doing this stuff. I think that's very, very important to pick that out. But now's the time. Tell us what is licensing exactly, and what does licensee and licensor, what do these names mean?
Great. It's a great time to clarify that. So a license in general is an agreement where you, as the licensee, are renting somebody's intellectual property, a character, an image. There's lots of different types of licenses. You're renting that character for a particular amount of time in exchange for some sort of payment, and usually would be a royalties. So that's all it is for a license. What a license is, it's just an agreement between the two of you to use that property on your product. So you think about some very simple examples, like we just talked about George Foreman grill. Well, let's face it, George Foreman wasn't making the grills. He was lending his name to the George Foreman grill, and that was made by an appliance manufacturer. And Rick Cesari was basically, putting those two together and doing the marketing on the George Foreman grill. Another example might be one of the examples that I use in my free course is a children's play tent. You may make a children's play tent right now, but what if you put something on like Disney Frozen play tent? Right? There's a great way to differentiate the product. So it's really you, again, have a licensing agreement to license somebody's intellectual property and put it on your product. Now, there are lots of nuts and bolts that go along with it, but that's the basics of it. And the two roles involved are the licensee and the licensor. So the licensor is the property owner, and the licensee, for our purposes, are the manufacturers, and you and I.
Very interesting. That's funny you should mention a children's tent, because I know somebody that I was considering working with as a client who's actually looking into children's tents as one of their properties. And it strikes me that it's one of those things where you've got to create a brand and a sort of experience and a sense of this is going to be really cool and the kids are going to love it as a Christmas present or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And it's such a brand dominated market, it seems to me. I mean, I don't have kids, so I'm less aware of it. I know a lot of Amazon sellers, and especially the retail arbitrages, often go crazy at Christmas on toys. But it's obviously such a powerful differentiation thing that it makes a lot of sense. So, Sarah, before we go any further into why to look into it, you said there's lots of nuts and bolts. I think it's going to be very important to explore that. But first of all, give us a taste of the fruits of your labors. Obviously, it sounds like quite a complicated thing. Is it worth doing, and what sort of results have you got from it financially and in the other ways that have been an upside for you?
Well, making a decision to go into licensing is not only, I think, about the dollar value of the sales that you might get from licensing. It's really a business strategy, because there's a lot involved with the license, and it can be very expensive and very time consuming to start into licensing. So for me, as I mentioned it before, I wanted to protect my brand and grow my brand through licensing. And I'll address kind of the success and the growth. So when licensed product for me, gives me a pipeline of products. So I have, under my Nickelodeon license, for example, I have 4 different properties. So it gives me a pipeline of product that I can roll out on the same basic platform. I have the same basic product. I'm just kind of modifying that product. And again, you can think about, say that you're an umbrella manufacturer, and you're, making, again, children's umbrellas, adult umbrellas, NFL, whatever you want to put on that license, you can do it. So it kind of helps you create, lots and lots of variations. But also another, great benefit of what's happened with me is that through our affiliation with Nickelodeon, obviously, I've been able to launch products and do very well with those products. And honestly, on my Paw Patrol Cozy phones, for example, we obtained a very high ranking very quickly with very little or no promotion. And because you have folks who are seeking out that property. If you have, a 4 or 6-year-old who's in love with Paw Patrol, what better gift to get them than a Paw Patrol gift? And if you can rank for that keyword, it makes it a lot easier to make a sale. So we were very successful with our first line, which was the Paw Patrol line, and the What If Monster, and we have several of our other licenses coming out this fall. But it's given us tremendous opportunity to grow. But more than that, it opened up other opportunities for us, like outside distribution. So,
ooh, what is outside distribution? That sounds interesting. I don't even know what that means.
Well, it means going into brick and mortar for me.
Okay.
So I met through Nickelodeon and through attending different events. I was introduced to a distributor who loved our product and is already selling toys and gifts in Walmart, Target, all the major retailers. And because we had the credibility of already having great sales and licensed product in the market, they understood the value of that along with the Nickelodeon brand. And we were able to come to an agreement on a distribution deal where we're going to be, introducing our products to retail brick and mortar this fall.
Wow, interesting stuff. So I guess the point about outside distribution, it's something that a lot of people talk about as an end game or as a possibility if you're really ambitious. But, if you, and the alternative being, I guess, to flip an Amazon brand within a couple of years, which is going to, I suspect, get harder and harder to sell as a unique thing, as in only with Amazon sales. But I guess one of the issues with that is getting taken seriously by the buyers for the really major chains, right? Or the distributors who sell it.
Yes, and that's a very good point. That's the point that I was trying to make. Is you get instant credibility because you're aligned with that brand, and it's like, wow, if Nickelodeon thinks this is a good idea, this might be a good idea for me. And if you go into, and I'm going to focus on toys because this is our category, but if you go into a toy aisle in a Target or a Walmart or something like that, you're going to find a section with all of those brands. So Nickelodeon's going to have a section of products there. And so you're one piece of many, many Nickelodeon products there. The same thing with even digging it down deeper into the category, like Paw Patrol, for example. There's a Paw Patrol section in that retailer. So it's an easy fit for a buyer, a retail buyer or a distributor, because it's putting in one piece of a kind of system that already exists out there.
Amazing. That makes a lot of sense. And you're joining up a lot of dots that I didn't even know existed, frankly, because brick and mortar retail is not something I've got products in. But very, very interesting how you've gone from basically just a slightly customized product to something with more of a design-led thing for a very specific market, through to licensing agreement and getting the endorsement of a big brand, through all the way to getting yourself into the really big stores. But there is a sort of logical progression there that follows very neatly, and that just goes to show how big licensing can be. So in our next episode, we're going to discuss the nuts and bolts of it. But I think it's good to leave it there with the big picture in people's minds, because I think often people ignore the nuts and bolts of something because they focus on that, and they don't focus on, but this is why you should take the trouble, because this is the size of the result. So that's a really very inspiring story.
Yeah, it's the opportunities are really amazing, but they come with a cost, and we'll certainly get into that. And it's not to be taken lightly.
Great. Well, yes, we need to make it real. So, folks, if you're listening and you want to know more about Paul and the entire the process, then get yourself over to amazingfba.com/Paul M for Miller, and we will have the episodes links there with the show notes, and also there'll be links to various resources that Paul has, including I think a free 3-part training series. Is that right, Paul?
That's right. We have a 3-video training series that really just talks about the opportunity, how it solves problems for Amazon sellers, and gives you kind of the high-level information that might help you make the decision of whether or not you want to go into licensing.
Yeah, which is the first order of business. Is this for me or not? Which is a very intelligent way of structuring it. So thanks very much for providing that for us, Paul, and look forward to speaking to you in the next episode about all the nuts and bolts of licensing and how it actually works.
My pleasure. Thank you.